Today we honor St. Andrew, Dũng-Lạc, and the martyrs, his companions. There was about 117 of them that died in the 1800s. They laid down their life for Christ, and they were from Vietnam. Among them were about 96 Vietnamese Dominicans, some French missionaries, Jesuits, and those of the Paris Foreign Mission Society, even 8 bishops and about 50 priests and 60 lay people, families, mothers, children, fathers, catechists, etc., some soldiers, even young children as young as 9. They were unfortunately strangled and beheaded. Some were burned alive. Some were tortured, and yet not a single one of them renounced the faith they had received in baptism. St. Andrew Dũng-Lạc was a parish priest, and he was arrested several times. Each time his parishioners found a way to get him out. They ransomed for him. They paid, his bond, and finally, though, it wasn't until 1839 he got arrested again, and then he tells them, enough. I have preached the gospel long enough with my words. Now it is time to preach it with my blood. So he welcomed martyrdom, and he walked to his executioners singing psalms. These martyrs teach us that, faith is not just a private thing we do. It's a public thing we do. In Vietnam during this time, the 19th century, even making the sign of the cross or praying the rosary meant you'd be put to death. And yet they still taught their children. Mothers and fathers taught their children. And still to this day in this part of the world, the faith is sort of underground. From North Korea to China, the priests sheltered in hidden attics. It was kind of a cat and mouse game. And so there's legend that St. Andrew and some of his companions were hidden in their homes, in the attics, in the basements, etc., while the state and those of authority were trying to silence Christianity and kind of stop its growth, had a backfiring effect. Those who were martyred, the faith grew. We who live in an age that often fears discomfort more than death need, these examples of these martyrs to help us. We might not face the sword or the guillotine or the cross in crucifixion, but every day we are tempted to be quiet about our faith. And sometimes we are indifferent about it, or we compromise so that we don't stir anyone, and stir the bee's nest in a sense. If you go to some parts of the world, if you were if I was a priest and it was known I was a priest and I was wearing my collar in certain parts of the world, they could easily arrest me and put me to death or use me for ransom. When we choose popularity over the faith or truth, we are offered the same kind of choice as the Vietnamese martyrs faced. And you do belong to Christ? Are you willing to die for him? That's what St. Andrew and his companions faced. Matter of fact, St. Paul, there was another saint among this group. His name was Tran Van Trong. He was one of the companions, and he was quoted at his trial saying, "I have only one life to lose, and I gladly lose it for Christ, who gave his life for me." So that's a beautiful way to live the faith even to the end of one's life in death, giving witness to your faith in martyrdom. And that single sentence lived on, and it wound up lasting 160 plus years. The blood of these 117 martyrs, they were witnesses, and their blood was the seed of the church in Vietnam today. I went to school in seminary, and I was a tutor for teaching English to a Vietnamese seminarian. and he was from North Vietnam area, the heart of Vietnam. I guess there's no south or north, but his family lived through, during the Vietnam War. And I asked him about the faith, and he says, yeah, there's persecution still, but there's also, in some parts still, it's not. So I was surprised by that. And he came to America in the Diocese of Chicago to be a priest and get ordained. And so what's astonishing is that today Vietnam has over 7 million Catholics. And that's what he confessed to me when I was asking him. This was many years ago. But that even in communism, the Catholic faith actually can exist. It does in China as well, in Vietnam. I don't know about North Korea as much, but some of these places in the eastern part of the world, even though there was persecution heavily in history, they're still thriving. There's Catholic faithful in Vietnam, 7 million to this day, in vibrant churches in Asia. And so on the feast of St. Andrew Dũng-Lạc and his companions, their lives teach us to live up to the faith and even die for it. Their courage is what gave some of these individuals their joy. They were willing to, as Andrew went to the executioner, singing psalms, St. Paul, Tran Van, at his trial, said, I have only one life to lose, etc. It was wonderful. These were heroic deaths too, and heroic lives. And so may all the martyrs live in our hearts, and may we never forget them. We give witness to the faith also. There's also white martyrdom, and so our hearts will answer as readily as they did, when these martyrs said, we belong to Jesus, and they take everything else, but you cannot take him from us. And so on this feast day, let us ask St. Andrew Dũng-Lạc and his companions to teach us that their courage and their joy, may we live in such a way too, if we are asked one day to choose between Christ and anything else, that our hearts will be readily able to answer as theirs did. And who Andrew was quoted lastly, we belong to Jesus. So we belong to Jesus. Take everything, but you cannot take him from us. And so on this day, November 24th, we remember all the martyrs, and especially those in Eastern Asia in the 19th century. So God bless, and I'll see you at Mass.